Welcome to the Kaizen Blueprint podcast, where we explore topics for continuous personal growth and improvement.
Sulaimaan Daniels, welcome to the show. So I want to start off strong. You're plant-based, but I think many people are probably mistaken, or they don't know, or they don't have a lot of knowledge. What's the difference between plant-based versus vegan versus vegetarian?
So I guess to kind of kick it off, let's say plant-based or whole foods plant-based is really just eating from the earth. You see the foods that are grown, or even if you're having like products and things, whether if it could be cereals or snacks, a lot of the ingredients come from the earth. There's not a lot of chemicals, not a lot of additives, not a lot of like processed sugars or processed salts, or just salts. And so like we're eating straight from the earth. Now with vegan, it could be, I guess you could say, whether it's a product, you're not eating any animal foods. It could be maybe you're eating vegan due to animal rights or to protect the environment, which are all positives. However, we're talking from, I guess, just a nutritional level. Being vegan, you're not eating any animal foods. However, you can have a diet that's high in like processed foods or maybe sugars or wheat or gluten and a lot of things that can be detrimental to the body. And then when it's vegetarian, you're still not eating any meat or fish. However, you do consume, whether it's dairy, eggs, so a little bit of poultry. However, when it comes back to the whole food plant-based perspective, you're eating straight from the earth. You're getting a lot of nutrient-dense foods, not a lot of chemicals, not a lot of processed ingredients, and that just helps the body flourish a lot better compared to when you're just eating vegan. You can eat a lot of like foods packed with chemicals that can be very detrimental.
Is it hard? Because we both live in a city, right? And there's so much processed food. How hard was it that, I know you're plant-based, right? So How hard was it to change that diet and kind of tell us how you first started?
I guess it wasn't too hard. When I became plant-based, I was actually in college. I was at Penn State main campus. So when I was out there, they had a lot of foods that were readily available. They were vegan at the time. And so I would just go up to the dining commons, eat the foods. I didn't have to prep too many foods too much. So I would just go there, get my food, go back to my dorm room or eat in the dining commons, and it was pretty simple. Now, when I came home in 2019, that's when it became very challenging. And I was like, you know what? This takes a lot of work, a lot of intention, a lot of time in the kitchen, a lot of preparation. And it weighed on me a lot. Like I cut out a lot of the activities that I would like to do, such as exercising or going to the gym was a big one for me. However, eating was really something that I needed to stick to. And like you said, it's not a lot of accessibility. A lot of corner stores, or in Philly, we call them poppy stores, a lot of processed foods, a lot of snacks, a lot of candy. So we don't really live in, if you're living in the inner cities, we don't really live in an environment that's promoting healthy living. Like you said, it's a lot of corner stores, a lot of processed foods, a lot of fast foods, McDonald's, which I grew up eating, which is horrible. So it was very challenging in the beginning just to be like, all right, well, I got to make this work. How am I going to make it work? And what helped for me was keeping it simple. Just going to the stores, getting fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. I learned a lot of recipes off of YouTube, cooking in the kitchen myself, and just experimenting, trying things out. My family didn't really like the food at first. It wasn't the best. However, over the years, definitely got a lot better. So I think just being intentional with it and knowing that, all right, I'm going to make this a non-negotiable. That's how it helped me, just making it a non-negotiable. Like, you know what? I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to do the best that I can. And maybe I can't get all organic at first. And then like a year later, started working in a restaurant or a market called Mom's Organics. And being able to work there helped me just be opened up to more accessibility to fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. And then over the course of the last couple of years too, just working in some plant-based vegan restaurants, just opened the door up for just more that I was able to get. So in the beginning, definitely started from just like making that non-negotiable intention to say, you know what, I'm going to eat healthy. And no matter what's the case, I'm going to make it happen.
Was there any goals, or did you just like wing it? Or like, these are my 3 to 5 non-negotiables. These are the food that I want to eat every day, or these are the food that I don't want to eat every day. How strict were you when you first started?
I think for me, when I first started, so my whole thing, I guess, when it comes to health was always originated on just fitness. Because when I was younger, at the age of 10, I was overweight and I had to start playing football. I hated it my first year. But as I stuck with it and I started working out, and a big inspiration for me to work out was it was like an end of our practice one year. I maybe been about 13 or 14. And as a group, we were doing sit-ups. And I was the only person in the team that couldn't do a sit-up because I never had gym growing up in school. And my coach came up to me. He was like, sorry, you can't do a sit-up. And so that night I went home, I did 100 sit-ups and was like, you know what, I'm going to be able to work out. And having abs became a big standard for me to be healthy. And so when I first went vegan, I was at school. I put on the freshman 15. It was like freshman 20 for me because I was 150 in high school. So I was about 170 pounds. And I was like, you know what? I came across a guy on Instagram and he was like super cut, eating a lot of fruit. And I was like, you know what? How is he that cut? And he's just eating fruit. And I'm here eating protein and chicken, X, Y, and Z. And so I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to try it out. So I went a couple of days I would eat chicken. And I maybe like 4 days out the week, I would just eat pretty plant-based, no animal products at all. Maybe like a little bit of dairy if it was in pancakes or something like that. But just eat more fruits and vegetables. You know what? I started to cut out, started to lean out, got to 150. I was like, you know what? I'm feeling really good. I have a lot of energy. I'm the most cut I've ever been in my life. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick with it. And so just having that or just seeing the changes physically that it gave me and like the mental boost and how I felt energy-wise, it made me say, you know what? I'm going to stick with it because this is something that makes me feel good. Now, in the beginning phase, I want to say like 2019, 2020, I was following a lot of the alkaline or Dr. Sebi diet, if anyone's familiar. And like it became a little too restrictive. And so over the course of the years, I've definitely opened up and I allowed myself to maybe eat something that's not fully alkaline or fully 100% plant-based. Like I may have some vegan pizza or some vegan donuts every now and then. However, the root of my diet is definitely just whole food, fruits and vegetables for primarily the most point, and then still limiting any animal products too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what people get mistaken all the time, right? They compare themselves to where you've seen the influencers or the doctors, where they are today, where, for example, for you, it started off with being that environment or having that motivation. And then you start seeing the changes that's going on in your life, whether that's the diet or that's the, your physical body just changing. And then you start having rules and the non-negotiable. And I think that's what people mistakes a lot because like, oh, he's 6-pack and he's running, 100 miles or he's doing this super strict plant-based diet. But, they don't see the work that goes behind closed doors that, it started off with me not doing a sit-up, then me playing football, then me cutting out like the fats, the processed things. And that's where you are today.
Yep. And a lot of it too, like, I think it really just stems from just my care of overall health. When I look at the inner city communities, I think we're really targeted to not really be healthy. You think it's, like I said, it's a lot of processed foods, a lot of fast foods. And so eating healthy for me is a source of empowerment. I feel like it's a source of just self-love and be like, you know what, I care about myself so much that I'm not going to eat these foods that's going to increase my cholesterol or raise my triglyceride levels in my blood, which are going to lead to type 2 diabetes or being overweight or being obese. And being able to live as an example of health, I can inspire whether it's my family members, I work as a personal trainer, so my clients or just anybody that I come across, maybe or social media connections that I made, just be able to be an inspiration and a positive example of healthy living. And not that everything's perfect, not that I got to follow certain rules and regulations, that just inspire people, you know what, create your version of a healthy diet or a healthy plant-based lifestyle, as I like to call it, and, make it your own and stick with those standards. And that's how you have a successful, healthy lifestyle as opposed to like something that's restrictive or you're following someone else's way of living that's not truly authentic to your own.
Well, it seems like you got into an environment where it promotes the healthy living, right? But what would you advise someone who is the opposite end of the spectrum on that? Like you're constantly bombarded with advertisements of, in America, they have pharmaceutical advertisements, which is different than most other countries. What do you see that? And then you get these pills that, the fat loss pills, or you see McDonald's at every corner of the street. Like, what would you advise someone who's probably want to get into a certain diet or in a physical shape of some sort, maybe, cut out fat or lose weight? What would you advise someone to not get tempted on these temptations all around the city lifestyle?
I think the biggest thing is just knowing your why. I think when you really know, like, all right, whether maybe your goal is weight loss or maybe you had family members that have passed away or they're dealing with chronic illnesses and you're like, you know what, I don't want to end up like that, or I want to reach this goal physically. Just knowing your why is going to be the biggest thing to help you get to your goal and help you stay consistent, because I face a lot of temptations. I know when I first went vegan, like it's not a lot of places or plant-based, not a lot of places that are accessible that sell foods that I like to eat. So it takes a lot of intention, a lot of preparation. And sometimes you just might have to be hungry if you're on a ride with a family member. And it's just like, you know what? I just got to wait till I get home. However, really knowing that why is what's going to help you just stick with it and stay consistent and continue to progress on.
Got it. Talking about back to plant-based, what are the pros and cons about it?
I think the pros are definitely just being able to feel your best. I think you're eating a lot of vibrant foods that are filled with a lot of vitamins, minerals that just help our body just work or function effectively and function optimally. And I think when we're not eating a whole bunch of processed foods that are going to weigh us down, have us feeling tired, or we call it the itis. If you ever had a Thanksgiving meal and you're feeling too full, you get the itis. You really don't feel that way eating plant-based. Now, you still can't overeat. You still want to eat until, they call it in the Okinawans, Japanese community, eat until or harahachibu, eat until you're about 80% full.
Yep.
So still eating, a nice healthy amount of foods. However, you're getting a lot of fresh, vitamins, minerals that are full in abundance that are bioavailable that our body can recognize, digest, easily absorb, and then we can take that with us and, be very energized and just functioning well.
Now, is there cons to it?
Cons to it, I'll say, number one is definitely not a lot of options. So it's like you have to really be intentional sometimes about depending on where you're at.
Sure.
Definitely got to be intentional about just, planning ahead. And then also too, you can say if you're someone who's very active, you're not eating enough, you can definitely lose a lot of weight. That was something that I've come across during my plant-based journey. I want to say back in like late 2019, 2020, I dropped all the way down to 125 pounds.
Wow.
Now, in high school, I've averaged always around like 150. Maybe in college, like 170, and then now I'm about 160. But I dropped all the way down to 125, lost a lot of muscle. And that's because I just wasn't eating enough food, wasn't eating enough calories, wasn't eating enough protein to like maintain my muscle. And then also I was very stressed. The pandemic had really just hit. So I was just kind of going through a lot of anxiety. And I think just trying to be too perfect, whether it's with juice fasting or trying to eat completely raw, which is just fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, nothing cooked, ended up just losing just too much weight until my mom was just like, so you just getting too small. You gotta eat. Yeah, so I started to make a shift in like 2020 and just started to eat more and ended up getting all the way to 184, which was like me had a whole belly again, love handles. Like, no, I got to cut back down. And that was a whole nother journey.
It's like a whole cycle.
So I've definitely been like high end of the spectrum of eating too much and then low end of the spectrum of not eating enough and being too light. And now I've like kind of found my healthy medium.
Yeah.
Just a healthy weight.
When you said you eat more to gain to where you are now, was that in quantities or did you eat protein shakes? Like what was the difference in terms of eating habits?
Got you. So I guess eating habits, like when I was 125, I was very strict on like intermittent fasting or juice fasting. So I might have ate between like 12 p.m. and 7.
Yeah.
Or if I did eat in the morning, it was just straight fruit. Very little like, I guess, complex carbohydrates, whether it's sweet potatoes or chickpeas or quinoa. And so not having those like, I call them like foundational foods or foods that help to keep some healthy weight on you as a plant-based eater, really helped me or really made me become very skinny, very frail. And the shift from there was just incorporating those foods back in, eating maybe about 2 or 3 meals a day. I'm still eating smoothies, still eating a lot of fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. However, just having those like sweet potatoes or chickpeas. Now, as of late, I've been doing more like protein shakes, high quality source of protein, still like hemp seed protein powder. And I get another one that's made from a lot of ancient seeds. So still not a lot of fillers, not a lot of like unhealthy ingredients, because even like protein shakes can have a lot of additives that we want to avoid still. But just having those like healthy sources of protein has definitely helped out too.
So you wouldn't consider these protein shakes to be processed food?
I guess in a sense they're processed. However, they're still made from just whole food ingredients. So they go through like a process. Because if you take a whole food ingredient like hemp seeds, if I say hemp seeds versus hemp seed protein, the hemp seed, you get the protein, you get the healthy fats, you get a lot of the vitamins and minerals. Now the protein, you might get more of the protein, a little bit less of the healthy fats, a little bit less, or I won't say a little bit less vitamins and minerals, but you get more of the protein and less healthy fats. And I think the difference between the two is when it comes to being plant-based or the way I specifically eat, because I aim to not eat any soy either.
Why is that?
Just because it could be, I guess when you look at just the genetic makeup of soy and just for Black people in general, I just shy away from it. It might get a little too deep. But I just try to just avoid soy as best as I can, just because how it can impact the body from a Black person, just because I think everyone has their own genetic makeup.
Yeah.
And what someone needs to eat from a different race may differ from someone else. Just the research that I've looked into, soy isn't always the best. It could be a little more inflammatory. So I avoid it. And so with not having that soy in there, I've noticed that it can be a little more challenging to get protein. So say if I wanted to get 100 grams of protein, which is normally what I range now, which is my go-to goal. Without the protein shakes, I might just hit 50. Now with the protein shakes, even if they're hemp seed or maybe like a whole food source, it still allows me to get to that 100 grams.
Yeah.
That helps out. So that's been like a big difference now.
Got it. Let's go back into eating habits. And I think we could start from when we're young. When we're young, we're given, pretzels. I remember when I was in middle school, we were giving out these soft pretzels, the Philly pretzels, right? And then you have the sauce, and those are pretty much processed,
Right.
and you get the sauce that's like super, super sweet. I loved them growing up, but I think that we're given a lot of processed food as we grow up, and that's very hard, especially in schools, right?
Yeah.
When I was growing up in middle school, we were given all processed food, like Wawa milk that we don't know. That's, nowadays, when you go to a coffee store or a coffee shop, they ask, what type of milk would you like? And a lot of people would go to these non-dairy milk.
Right.
Which brings me to the questions of, what do you think can change as younger kids grow up with in regards to food? Like, how can we provide them with better foods? And obviously, organic foods are more expensive. So, and schools are still a business. They have to make money. I got to pay people.
Right.
So there's that margin. So what do you think schools can do now to educate kids with better food? They could grow healthier, less processed. Just what are your thoughts on that?
I think the main thing is just not trying to look at it as like, all right, let's try to take away X, Y, and Z. Let's just try to add more stuff. So maybe just adding more fruits and vegetables, adding more education around the benefits of eating healthy, whether if that's talking about diseases or maybe just energy levels or brain function, whatever the case may be, just educating them on why it's important to eat healthy foods. And then maybe also taking away a little bit, maybe taking away a little bit less candy, a little bit less sugar, because the harmful aspect of sugar is that it triggers dopamine receptors on our brain, so it can become very addicting. And so a kid may opt for the candy as opposed to the healthier fruits and vegetables, even though it's still sweet, still in a sense sugar. Sugar's a little bit different. However, the kid will opt for the candy because they're developing more of an emotional attachment to it. So just kind of educating, maybe taking away just a little bit, or maybe, all right, if you eat maybe not want to try to make it like reward center, but if you eat a good serving of fruit, you can have some candy later. And so they're still getting just more of a well-rounded diet, because no one's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Can't change everything, can't change everyone. I think if we could just add more fruits and vegetables, I think will help out. And then in addition to that, maybe just helping, or if we can get kids more involved with gardening, or just seeing like fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, and just letting them see everything growing from the root. And I think that'll be another way of just get them more engaged, get them more into just like healthy eating and healthy living, as opposed to like, all right, I just got to eat this fruit because my mom or because my teacher said so.
Yeah.
And we can make it more like, get them involved, even with cooking. Maybe we have some cooking classes or things like that where they start to enjoy healthy eating, as opposed to just looking at it as like a chore or as a requirement that's put on them from a parent or authority figure.
Yeah. But there's also the pricing aspect that's an issue, because if I'm buying a salad, right, it's like $7 or $8 versus getting a bag of chips and the soda that's cost me $2 or $3, however much, based on inflations now. How, even though we're educated, we know, I think a lot of people know salads are relatively healthy, depending on where you get or what type of sauces and what you put in there. But it's definitely healthier than McDonald's, right? What do you think about that, where there's that pricing differences in between, but then you could get full, I would say, right? You could get full from eating, two Big Macs versus one salad from Chipotle or anywhere else.
Gotcha. I think the biggest thing is looking at or asking yourself, when do you want to pay? So do you want to pay now or do you want to pay later? If you can pay now for healthy foods, you don't have to pay later for a bunch of medical or I don't say medical insurance, but just like medical bills and having to deal with a lot of health complications later on in life. Because that's been one of the biggest things that's inspired me to stay with it. I think the last couple of years, and my grandma, she's still living. However, a lot of her two sisters passed away due to health complications. So like kind of seeing, just the first hands-on effect of like what can truly happen when we don't take care of our health. And I'm pretty sure it's a lot of individuals out there who maybe have lost a loved one, or maybe you have a loved one going through a health complication right now. And, you can see what they're going through. And you have to ask yourself again, do you want to pay now or do you want to pay later? So making that investment into your health is what's going to keep you living and flourishing. And it'll also create another non-negotiable so that when you do have that, it's a little pricey to maybe buy organic or maybe just buying fruits and vegetables, you say, you know what, I would rather invest into my health now as opposed to having to deal with a lot of health complications later on in life, or even, in your younger ages, because a heart disease can develop from a kid or from a teenager just by the plaque buildup in the artery. So you don't have to wait till you're 50 or 60, 70 to develop heart disease. You can start developing that, at very young ages. So we can take care of ourselves now. We can, continue to expand our lifespan and then change the narrative of a lot of our future generations to be able to promote healthy living as opposed to promote endless cycles of, disease, being unhealthy, going to the doctor so much or hospitals, and not really living as the best as we could.
Yeah, I like that, the delayed gratification, because I think kids nowadays, they just want to get the quick food, the quickest food, how you get full quickly and the cheapest food as possible. And usually fast food, outside of the healthy, the healthiness behind it, it's like fast food fills in those gaps pretty quickly.
That is true.
Once you have built that habit after 25 of eating unhealthy foods and being tempted into these quick and ready food, it's kind of hard to get out of it.
Yeah, it definitely is.
That's why I asked about the educational piece, because once you teach young kids to eat healthy and work out, because physical goes a long way. I think if you started young and you have this habit of working out, eating good food, you will grow,
and
as old as possible.
I think a lot of it has to start just at home, because I remember one of my classes in college, it was a nutritional class. We didn't really touch on so much we talked about, I guess, benefits of eating healthy a little bit. But a lot of it was more science-based and biology. We didn't really dive into like actual food health or food knowledge. Like a lot of what I've learned has come from like reading books on my own, or studying different videos. Or I know when I was in college, I attended a health seminar that was hosted by someone who's plant-based vegan. So like taking the time to step out of the health system or like the educational system, and whether if it's teaching our kids something different or educating ourselves, I think that's going to be a big thing. Because one of the another aspect of what made me want to stay healthy or keep my plant-based nutritional lifestyle going was that last year I was in college, I was taking a class and we were talking about heart disease. And I was reading it. That was the time I was starting to become vegan. I was reading in a book called African Holistic Health by Dr. Layla Africa. And my teacher, he was talking about heart disease, and he was saying, we can't cure it, X, Y, and Z. And he was saying, I asked him a question. I said, well, what if we don't eat cheeseburgers? What if we just limit certain foods that we eat? He's like, nope, you can't change it. I'm like, well, you're lying, because I'm studying different information. I'm learning different things. And, when you look at the science of it, if you reduce high inflammatory foods that don't spike the HDL or LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol in our blood, or increase our triglyceride levels, and you keep the arteries clear, you're not promoting heart disease. You're not promoting the chances of having clogged arteries or that plaque buildup or a stroke, or that could lead to strokes and different things too. So you can, by eating healthy, exercising, keeping your stress levels low, not smoking, you can lower your chance of developing heart disease. So once I started to kind of learn that, I was like, all right, we're not being educated, very well within our educational system. So I have to take the narrative within myself, or I have to take the chance within myself to inspire and educate other people, which is why I post a lot on social media or just share with individuals that I'm talking to, like the importance of healthy eating. And, we can change our future by just what we do now. Yeah. And if we could do that, we can really make big changes within the world.
The pay now and the pay later. Yeah. There's one thing that I noticed what you're speaking of, that these healthy habits come from two ways. I think yours is love, and what your teacher was mentioning is fear. Yeah. Right? When we're eating healthy, sometimes when we start, it's like, oh, I like it, I enjoy it. And then you start building the habits. I feel like we both did that, right? Younger. But other people, once they realize, oh, I have some sort of disease, maybe I have cancer, or maybe I have, the heart disease, things like that. And I feel like that's a change, like a shift. Right. Like, okay, I got to eat healthy now. It's like, I want to live long. I want to see my kids. So habits in general comes from love or fear.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I think if we can kind of start to shift the narrative of like, all right, we can not be fearful and just like, no, I love myself enough or I love my family enough to where I'm just going to make these healthy habits stick. I think we'll have just health that lasts a lot longer as opposed to like once fear comes up, oh, let me make a change. However, once the fear goes away, you can relapse and go right back to the same habits. So we could just start moving from more of a place of love.
Yeah.
I think we'll be much more consistent and build more sustainable habits long term.
I feel like the fear aspect is maybe the why for most people, right?
It's an initiator.
Exactly. Once they start figuring it out, it's like, oh no, time to change my diet, time to change my fitness.
That is true.
We're talking about eating habits, healthy eating habits. We talk about fitness. Now let's shift over into relationship, right? You got the physical aspect, right?
Yep.
But socially, how did that help you build confidence? And just overall talking to people about these healthy habits and fitness.
Got you. So I think food has a very powerful way of changing, I guess, our energy levels or kind of just open us up or aligning us to like just more in life. I think once I started eating healthier, number one, I became more self-aware of just myself, whether it's how I'm feeling, my emotional states, different areas that I can grow in. And I feel like my mind just started to become more open, especially just eating more fresh, organic fruits and vegetables, whole food sources, as we talked about before. And I don't know, I think just aligning myself in the perfect environments. One foundational piece of my life or part of my life was working at Mom's Organics. It's a grocery store on the East Coast chain or East Coast side of the U.S. And I worked there for, I want to say maybe 6 months. However, I used to be very shy, kept to myself, then open up, talk to people. However, when I worked there and also getting my health coaching certification, I was pushed to just talk and communicate to more people because we would bag customers groceries and have to talk and engage with them. And I just really started to just love to like just be sociable and just like, talk to people, make it help or be have a positive impact on them and whether their health or maybe just being a listening ear, being compassionate.
Yeah.
So I think food has helped me just kind of open up to myself first and then also to other people. And so that'd be my answer for that question there.
You were put in an environment, right? You were put in an environment of Mom's Organic and you start speaking to people and coaching. But in terms of confidence, were you already confident then? Or was it because like you start feeling the change in your body, but you were good looking the whole time?
I think confidence has definitely always been I'm gonna say it's been my strong suit. Like if I'm going a little more interpersonal. So I'm gonna say like 7th or 8th grade. I'll say more 8th grade. With my group of my friends, we were in like middle school, almost high school.
Yeah.
And we were like trying to talk to the older girls. And like I would always just get like shunned and pushed away. And like I had a couple instances in high school where I was just called ugly by girls. So like that really had a diminish on my confidence level. And like it's affected me like even into my adulthood where I may not have the confidence to like go and speak to a girl or just open up and go talk to them or just like feel confident about my physical appearance. But I think just exercising has helped me out with a lot with that. Like just being confident with just my physical appearance, my body shape, my body style, and just my physique. And I think by incorporating fitness and also eating healthy has made me feel a lot better about myself because especially I want to say a couple years ago, I mentioned earlier, I was up to 184, was kind of big, had love handles. Yep. I didn't feel confident. I don't think, me personally, I don't feel confident at a heavier weight or just like not being like toned up in physique or fit in a physique level. So just having that confidence built in definitely helped me just open more, whether it's talking to girls or just being more confident within my line of work. Currently working as a personal trainer, I'm kind of always put on the spotlight every day to lead people, lead movements, lead large groups. So kind of just having that confidence level, that boost of just like, you know what, I feel good about myself, I look good, and it helps me just show up in the world a lot better, in my day-to-day lifestyle.
Got it. And what advice would you give someone who's maybe don't work out, a little bit overweight, and that lack of self-esteem and confidence? What advice would you give to them?
I would say you have to love yourself where you are now and love your body because, and that was something I had to tell myself. I'm big on affirmations, so I read affirmations every day. And on my affirmation sheet, I wrote down, I love my body. Okay. And I had to start telling myself that because I got so frustrated because like growing up, always being fit, always having abs, and then to like get big and not have abs, like it was definitely depressing. And I was like, you know what? I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't waking up early. I didn't really have motivation. I lacked a lot of self-esteem. So I had to just love myself where I was then because that person at that state was going to be the person to really make the drastic changes. And once I started to find that self-love, I was like, you know what? I started getting into the gym more, started being more consistent. And as I stayed consistent over time, I was able to get back to where I truly wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And but if I didn't take the time to love myself where I was in and love the person who was inspired to make a difference, I wouldn't have got to where I got to, or I wouldn't have got to where I am now or where I wanted to reach a few years ago.
What does that mean, love yourself? Is that taking care of yourself, or is that...
I think loving yourself should be, or I think a great way to love yourself is to root it in self-compassion. I think when you could be compassionate for your own mistakes, for your own imperfections, for areas of improvement, you allow yourself the ability to not be perfect and to actually grow and to improve as a person. So being compassionate is definitely one. I think other acts of self-love could be whether it's eating a healthy diet, maybe not restricting yourself or taking yourself out on a date or something like that. Could be just forms of self-love. However, I think rooting it in compassion allows you to not only be more forgiving and more sincere with yourself. However, you can take that same energy and take it to how you interact with the next person. Maybe it's your relationships, or maybe it's your friends or your coworkers or clients if you're working with clients. And you could be more patient with their journey and be more accepting and embracing of them as you're accepting and embracing of yourself.
Got it. So everything starts with you. I think that that's the most important thing. In my own story, I always was so hard about myself. I think that's coming from the Asian background of, you have the affirmation as Asians, and a lot of people can tune into, a lot of my Asian friends can tune into this. Like, we don't have affirmations from our parents, right? Or, if we get 97 on the test, they ask us, why didn't you get 100? And it was never like a good job, at least in my story. And and the reason why I'm saying that, it translates over to my adult life, right? Where I think that I'm doing good compared to most people, but then I always telling myself, it's like, oh, this is not good enough. It's never good enough. I don't feel like, even like during running, it's like, oh, maybe I'm faster than most people. But then like, oh, it's not good enough compared to, the next person who's doing running like 7 days a week and can run like a 5-minute mile, right?
Right.
So you always beat yourself up. And for my own definition, like the self-love is saying it's okay. Like, hey, just keep going. I think Jordan Peterson talked about this a lot. He's like, you want to compare yourself to your old self. I think that's very, very important.
And that's what I've been doing a lot now. Like, when I wrote any goals that I want to make, like I recently started running again. And I started running really a lot stronger, a lot more consistent towards the end of my college years. And I was running a lot. However, it was really hard to put on muscle or put on weight. I was plant-based at the time. I was about 150 and I wanted to get to like 160, 165. However, as I said, it was a struggle to run. So now looking back, and I'm like, all right, let me start running again. Let me try to be more on top. I can be on the top of my diet. I can eat enough foods. I have a little more control in my diet compared to then. And I could just be a better version of myself. And I think that's something that I've learned to do, because I used to base a lot of my success, whether that was social media or maybe an influencer or somebody that I'm looking up to, or maybe even just the next person that's doing something in the same field. And I'm like, I'm not really appreciating my success, or maybe I'm not working towards my own unique, authentic goals. And once I got fat, or I'll just say I got big, got fat, I was like, you know what? I got to get back to this person when I was healthy, in shape. I was feeling my best, and I made myself my screensaver. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back to this person. Yep.
That's interesting.
So for a while, just to help me zone in and just like make my own authentic goals and not try to live under someone else's standards.
Comparing yourself to other people.
Success. So I think that was something that was big for me too. And I had another point you mentioned, but continue.
Yeah. Well, talking about comparing yourself, like I think when we compare ourselves to other people, we compare it to their successes, but not necessarily their downfalls, right? And it's like, if you want to be like them, are you able to accept the fact of all these issues and all these problems that they have in their life? Are you able to take that with you in order for them to be successful? And I think majority of the time it's like, no. It's like, wow, that sounds rough, and I don't know how to react to it or make decisions out of it if I'm putting in that situation. So I think thinking about that, where you don't want to be in their shoes at their weakest or their downfalls, and that would deter yourself from comparing yourself to their success.
Yeah. And it's always too, it's like asking yourself, am I willing to do what that person is doing? Like, if someone wants to become a millionaire, are you willing to do everything that comes with becoming a millionaire. Maybe that comes with sacrificing family time or sacrificing enjoyment. Maybe you got to really be super tight and disciplined on your financials and how much you're spending. It's like, are you really willing to get to that level or do the things that the next person's doing? That's something I had to ask myself too. Like a couple years ago, like I was big on, I want to have X, Y, Z amount of money. I want to have X, Y, Z house. I want to do this, want to do that.
Yeah.
And I was kind of in a chase for more. And then I read a book called The Heart of the Buddhist Teaching. It's been a very transformational book. I bought it in 2019. I don't think I read it until like 2021. But it really played a big impact on my life. And the whole point of the book is turning suffering into joy, liberation, and peace. And it talked about just, finding more. And this is why I love mindfulness so much, because it's just about being aware of our states, being aware of our life, and just being more compassionate. However, it made me really ask myself, all right, is this chase for more really worthy, or is it really necessary, or can I find more joy, where my feet are planted? And that doesn't mean that I can't strive for more, or strive for certain things, or grow financially, X, Y, and Z. However, I can be happy where I am, and then also take my happiness from where I'm at and develop more authentic goals that will allow me to, pursue success or pursue desires that are more in line with my vision of how I want my life to go, as opposed to like, all right, if this person is a millionaire, I need to get there and I need to do X, Y, and Z that person is doing. Like, no, I can sit back and really assess like, all right, well, what do I want to do and live more genuinely? And I think by doing that, we can live much more peaceful, much more simple, and that we can develop more true happiness and joy, which will, really boost our relationships which will really boost up our relationships with ourselves and other individuals, how we show up at work. And I even look at it like times in the past, like I would get so frustrated maybe at jobs, like I was working at Mom's Organics.
Right.
My whole goal for becoming an entrepreneur was that so I didn't have to work a job. However, if I would have just been able to find just peace and happiness, at the job, I wouldn't have quit earlier. I wouldn't have had to go through certain financial hardships that I did, after I had quit, just from being frustrated. Oh, I'm in the system. Oh, I don't want to work X, Y, and Z. I got to get out. Where I could have just, found happiness and peace where I was and just kept on working day to day to get to where I wanted to get to. However, everything's a, life lesson and part of the journey. So I'm not regretting it. However, I could have been much more peaceful where I was at then. And that's something I try to take with me, working a job now and then wherever I'm else in the future.
How long did it take, or what methods did you do to figure out that was for you?
I guess reading books helps me out a lot, because I can read a lot of books, read a lot of personal development books, and it just helps me see the world differently, or not really see the world differently, but just see my own perceptions of the world differently. And I can, like if I'm reading something that's about mindfulness or any type of personal development book, I can take what the author has written in the book, kind of conceptualize it, think about how my habits on a day-to-day basis or my way of living or my way of looking at life, kind of whether if it frustrates me or angers me or makes me feel a certain way, and how can I kind of get out of that downward spiral to be more content, more peaceful with where I'm at. And I think through reading helps me really just kind of grow and develop more authentic goals.
Yeah, and you become more self-aware of reading. Like I read a lot of self-help books too, and they build up the questions in your brain. Like, why am I feeling this way? Or if someone says something to me, why do I get angry so quickly? Any like self-help book that you would recommend for someone to start reading to be more self-aware in their life?
I think the two would be, again, The Heart of the Buddhist Teaching. I think that's one book that made me just very self-aware. And then another one is called Ma'at Philosophy, MAAT Philosophy. And that book had a very big transformation, or it played a big part of my transformation just as a person. I read it in about, I think, 2019, 2020. And Ma'at, it just stands for truth, justice, peace, harmony, and is what they practiced in ancient Egypt. And so like just kind of reading the book, and it's about just living more righteous, treating, yourself with kindness, treating other individuals, the world with just more compassion and care. And I think it really just made me look at life differently, and it helped me just develop just more care for other individuals. And I think if we can, through those, or by reading at least those two books, they helped me the most on my journey. And I think if the world would read those two books, I think the world would be a much, happier, healthier, and peaceful place.
Interesting. Okay. I want to shift gear here and talk about relationships. I know this is going to be a sensitive topic, but one of the things that you mentioned even before recording this was the breakup that you went through. And that created kind of like more self-development and self-awareness for you as well. Do you want to talk about that real quick?
We can talk about them. So I've had in my life, I haven't had too many relationships, like deeply committed relationships. However, the two I've had in high school, as you know, we were in high school together. After high school, I broke up with my girlfriend at the time. And then recently was in a really good relationship. And I want to say the end of 2023, I think we just started to go in separate ways. And for me, when it comes to breakups, I have a hard time letting go. I've done therapy recently too, and like going through different things of how I deal with abandonment, which I've correlated to just with my dad. My dad isn't in my life as physically as I would like him to be. He's always been supportive,
Sure.
helped me out with college, paying for financials and things like that. However, maybe not there as physically or emotionally as I would have liked. So I think whenever I come across, whether if it's a breakup or a relationship where I may face certain triggers of abandonment, and really can cause a big downward spiral within myself, and like cause me to really question my self value, my self worth. And however, I will say like those two times have helped me. That's where I've seen my most development as a person internally, and a lot of growth. And I want to say compared to my previous relationship breakup from 2016, 2017, it hasn't affected me that much, as I've grown a lot then. And like now, my most recent breakup, it definitely was tough. I think all breakups are a form of like death in a sense, because the relationship dies, you know, you won't see that person in the same capacity as you once saw them. You miss the person.
Yeah.
And throughout the course of the healing journey these past couple of months, I've definitely gone from, you know, being sad, being depressed, being lonely, like I said, questioning my own self and my self-worth. And really you start to develop like, you know, that person was there in your life for, you know, a period of time where you got accustomed to certain things, and not having their physical presence is like, their presence there is like
hard.
You start to feel that they died in a sense, and that they're just not there. So kind of just going through that was a very just traumatic. However, at the same time, life-changing and transformational process of my journey so far.
That's why I think breakups are important for, especially for guys and gals, just because especially in the first one hurts the most. It's like, you know, oh, I thought that I could live or, you know, be with that person forever.
Right.
But then that forever kind of ended after, you know, a few years or a couple months, it doesn't matter. And then you start feeling those emotions like, oh, am I good enough? Or what did I do?
What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? That's like importance of breakup. And then hopefully you don't be kind of bogged down by that.
Yeah.
And you start asking yourself these questions, these self-awareness questions. Like, you know, you start being more analytical. At least that was for me.
Yeah.
And you start seeing transformation. You start seeing personal development. What are a couple things that you notice about yourself after the breakup? And what are a couple growth things that you've done?
Gotcha. I think the biggest thing, or the biggest way that I've been able to grow, is to learn how to forgive and not try to not hate the person, because it's like develop so much of, I feel like we subconsciously just develop so much of our identity in that person, and the person we are in the relationship is like, once it's over or once they leave or maybe they don't want us anymore, it's like we start to, I guess, put ourselves down.
Yeah.
And so we can develop, whether it's resentment or anger or hatred, which is, I went through all of those emotions. I think compared to my first breakup to now, I just sat with the emotions. I let them just kind of run their course, let them flow. They didn't try to say, oh, I shouldn't be hating this person, I shouldn't be doing this, let me try to push the emotion down. No, I just accepted it. I embraced it. And I, you know, one thing I try to do with my emotions now, whether if it's a quote unquote positive one or a quote unquote negative one, I try to just open the door to the emotion, treat it with kindness, treat it with compassion and care. Let it know that I'm there to help and support that part of me. Because I feel like if we try to hate a certain emotion, it's pretty much hating a part of ourselves. So we can, you know, show care and love to those emotions, or maybe ways of looking at life or looking at a relationship, and just be aware of it. We're able to really, you know, sit with it, grow, and kind of let it just, whether if it's diminish or let it go away, or just let the emotion open up a door and just leave it on its own, as opposed to like suppressing it and pushing it down. I think that's one of the worst things that we do as humans, is that we take our experiences, we take things that we go through, we develop emotions about them, and we suppress them. And due to those suppressed emotions, they show up in our relationships. So they might show up at work, or they show up within ourselves. And that could lead to many downward spirals, I think, from addiction to self-sabotage, to maybe not showing up in the world, or maybe if we want to work towards something, we can't get the motivation to do it, because a lot of those suppressed emotions aren't allowing us to, show up in the world as our best. So if we can treat those emotions with more kindness and care and compassion, I think we can develop just more inner self-love, and then that self-love can radiate into how we show up with other people.
Yeah, that's hard, right? The
Yeah.
suppressing aspect. I think after a breakup, well, it's a strong thing that you're doing, that you're understanding yourself, like you love yourself, being more compassionate.
Mhm.
But I feel like, at least in my experience with my friends, like they're all, I would say, distracting themselves
Yeah.
after the breakup. Like you start going out, you start going to the gym, you kind of distract
Yeah.
yourself from that analytical aspect
Right.
of like, okay, what did I do wrong? How can I improve?
Mhm.
As opposed to, oh, I'm gonna work out like 7 times a
Right.
day and hopefully, this
Yeah.
pain from working out, like it'll
Kinda get rid
forget.
of it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of substitute the pain from the emotion itself. But
And I feel like I've done that in the past. And I feel like I've maybe, 'cause I don't really, I think a lot of times we may try to distract ourselves, whether if it's with alcohol or smoking
Sure.
or maybe other sex, or get into different relationships right after a breakup. And I think for some reason, the course of my journey, I don't smoke, I don't drink. Not to say that anyone can't do that, or that it's like a bad thing, quote unquote. And I've also never really went from one relationship and hopped right into another one.
Sure.
Like I did a little bit in college. However, I just felt like there was no emotional connection. It was the energy just felt off. And then since then, I just never really did it again. So I've always kind of in a way forced myself to just deal with the pain and deal with the emotion.
You're strong.
And like my mind, because it sucks. Like I ain't gonna lie, it sucks
It
having
is.
to just like go through a lot of that pain and really just face it and grow from it. And like so in the past, I would use working out would be like a way of an outlet. However, recently, like working out wasn't helping. Like it was times where like I would go to work. So I work as a personal trainer in a gym called City Fitness. So I want to say my breakup happened in December of 2023. And it was tough December. And then January, like February, it was periods of time where I would just go in the bathroom and kind of just cry.
Really?
Like I couldn't.
Wow.
I just would have emotional breakdowns. Like it was crazy because a lot of this recent breakup really opened the door for a lot of, I think, suppressed emotions for myself. And I had no choice but to really deal with them. And one thing I try to work through my emotions is through poetry. So I would just write, whether if it was writing on physical paper, writing notes in my phone, or writing different poems in my phone. But yeah, it was periods of time where I would just go in the bathroom and just cry, or like have a tough time getting through my day, or I might talk to a coworker or a friend just to kind of lean on them for emotional support.
Yeah.
And also too, my previous ex, like we were still talking a little bit. I could, lean on them for support. And then it came to a period of time where we just had to go our separate ways.
Yeah.
And one thing I'm learning now is to still not have that resentment towards her. It can still be challenging, on a day-to-day basis. However, I try to just be aware of those thoughts and try to just maybe either think of a happy time or maybe just do my best to move with self-love. And one thing about me is that I could be so loving and caring and compassionate that I'm easy to forgive or open the door or try to make things work. And that's one thing I've had to learn just not to do, and just know when it's time to just, it's just time to cut ties and, just start to move on. Even though it sucks and it's hard and it's challenging, you don't want to move on from somebody that you genuinely love and care about deep down. However, if someone doesn't want you in their life, or if things are just not working out, you have to eventually just learn to move on. That's something that I'm still conceptualizing and moving through. However, it's just day by day, just taking it step by step and moving on.
Yeah, it's difficult because, that's some called fallacy where, once you started that relationship and then time goes on, you felt as though you invested the time and effort and money, right, into this relationship. And the longer it takes, the less likely you will let go. So that's a hard part. And I feel like childhood plays a big part of this. My parents wasn't there for me emotionally, so I had to learn things on the way. And sometimes it's hard for me to let go of things. And I was in a similar shoes as you were too. And
it's tough. It's definitely tough and challenging. I think the biggest thing to take from it is just that I just had the thought in my head, but just to, I guess, just embrace it and just kind of just continue to progress on. We can only change but so much. It comes to a point in time where we have to just forgive ourselves. I think that's another big thing, is you have to take accountability for your own healing. I think by sitting, because a breakup, it's easy to go, oh, they did this, they did wrong, they did me that. As opposed to playing like the victim role, is to, just take accountability and say, you know what, I accept maybe not letting go or not leaving or not walking away. I accept or I embraced that I was the reason I allowed them to keep coming back into my life. And once we take accountability for our wrongdoings, we can also take accountability for our healing, and then we can start to forgive ourselves in addition to forgiving that person, and we can start to move with more peace and love. And I think if we can also maybe just think of what we learned from the relationship and how we grew as a person, I think that also helps us to be like, you know what? I have faith in my own journey. I have faith in like a higher power, whether it's God or you know, follow a different religion. You know, it's easy to just say, you know what? I have faith in my journey. I have faith in my higher powers, and they're guiding me in a way to teach me certain things, that guide me on certain lessons. Because things you'll learn in one relationship, you could take it to, you know, another relationship, or maybe just a relationship with yourself. Like one of the biggest things that I've learned from my previous relationship was to just be vulnerable. And I think through being vulnerable with myself and with others is a great way just of just self-empowerment, and we can live more authentic and genuine and boost up our relationships all around.
Yeah, that vulnerability is very important. I can't say that word correctly. Vulnerability. It's a word that us guys, like men, right? We don't know what that means, especially emotions, because when we're growing up, at least how I was growing up, like we have to be strong. We have to provide for our family or for our partners. But sometimes that showing emotions is a weakness. Like we were shown that growing up. What do you think that sets that? Because, you know, we have to be strong. We have to, like, emotion is a weakness. Like these type of things are ingrained in us. And, you know, you mentioned that you cried in a bathroom. Like if my parents saw me crying in a bathroom, it's like, yo, get up. It's like, what are you doing?
I think the biggest thing was probably just, and I try not to show it, but I'm just like, I'm vulnerable, open. I also think that, you know, through my expression, I'm able to help the next person heal, whether it's a listener, a viewer, somebody I'm close with. I think through just, say the question one more time.
Vulnerability. Like what are your thoughts, and kind of like, how do you get past by the fact that we're so bogged down with the environments saying that men have to be really strong? And
I think it's a messed up way, fucked up way, that men have to be like just so strong and have to put on this like Superman cape. Even though I have a Superman tattoo, but just have to be like Superman every single day, and that, you know, showing any type of emotion as quote unquote weakness. I think a big part for me has just been growing up with my mom. So I didn't really have like I would say even my dad's not even like that, but I didn't have like the father figure that was in my life that's like, oh, you got to be X, Y, and Z. You can't cry. You can't do this. You got to pick yourself up. Don't show no sign of weakness. Like I didn't have that in my life. So I think I was able to be more like kind and soft-hearted. I think my relationship with my mom and just growing up with my mom and grandma primarily has really helped me. Even with my relationships with women, I feel like I have just a very deep care and compassion. I tend to develop more women or more lady friends. Just like I gravitate and feel more comfortable with women, which is something I'm also growing out of, like trying to also develop, you know, male friends and be like, all right, I'm cool with men too. I don't just have to be always friends with women, because I think it's very easy to like, we pick our sides. If you spend more time with your mom, you might develop more lady friends or more just female friends, as opposed to like, if you spend more time with your dad, you might develop more male friends.
Interesting.
My therapist even kind of pointed it out to me too. So it's a little more natural. And so like, I think that's played a big role in just me being able to be vulnerable. And then my last relationship, one thing she had on her wall was that it's okay to be vulnerable. And like when we first started hanging out and I first started to get to know her, she was one of the first females that I was able to interact with outside of my mom or grandma, that I was able to actually be vulnerable with and like express myself to, and not be looked on as like soft or weak or anything like that. So I think she played a pivotal role too, and just allowing me to open up and be more strong and embracing, you know, my vulnerable sides, and things that may look weak on the outside world actually can be strengths and help me become better, whether that's a better person, better father, better brother, son, sibling, whatever the case may be. I could just be a better person in life.
Women love vulnerability. I think that's one thing, because you show a lot of emotions. For guys, we're always comparing ourselves to other guys in terms of physical attributes, like how much money we have or what type of assets, how many houses, things like that.
Right.
I think what women want is our emotions. Like, how do we feel about certain things? Like, tell us more about that, and we could have conversations. What are your experience on that with your female friends?
I think it generates more trust and more care, and just like more of an authentic friendship.
Yeah.
Because like, even for me, I think the biggest thing that can be a big turnoff is like anything sexual from a man. I think that's the biggest thing that men can be seen as is like sexual predators, or everything is always centered around sex. And so I think by being aware of that, and I'm not saying that, all right, I don't get sexual urges or anything like that, but I think if we can, as men, be aware of certain emotional states within ourselves, whether that's sex, whether that could be greed, or
Yeah.
maybe just like power, or just like always got to have certain things our way.
Yep.
I think we can develop more wholesome relationships and more like trusting actual bonds, to where we don't, for where women, whether, because I think everything that impacts relationship is something that is based upon what something done, or what something is something that someone has been through in their past.
Like their experience, basically.
So say for instance, someone was sexually abused. Or as a man, if you can be aware of just how triggering that can be in your partner, or whether if it's your friend,
Yeah.
then you can act in a way that doesn't trigger them. Or maybe you can be more compassionate and more kind to those tender sides of your partner. And I think through vulnerability with them, and open up and being more expressive and getting to learn our partner, in addition to learning ourselves, we're able to just generate just stronger bonds and stronger relationships. And that's one thing I learned from the Heart of the Buddhist teaching. It's like one thing in mindfulness, or one thing they, I want to say preach, one thing they like really spoke on in the book was that understanding is the root of love. And to be able to understand someone, you can, have more of a free, or a relationship that's built in freedom, as opposed to like constriction or restricting, or like possessive rules. And I think that's something that has helped me within my relationships, whether it's with just lady friends, or female just partners. I think by just being more compassionate towards them, being more aware of like what men go through. Because sometimes too, like I don't even like being in the box. Box then is like y'all, or if women are saying, oh, men are X, Y, and Z. I don't really like being put in that box, because I don't view
Like
myself
generalizing.
as that. Because it's like men do some fucked up stuff.
Right.
And it's just like, it's not healthy.
What do you think that is?
You said why?
Yeah. Where does it come from?
I think it comes from just greed. I think it comes from greed, and then also just the programming that we have is like men have to be just like strong, and I don't want to say barbaric, but just like everything may have to go like a man's way, X, Y, and Z. And also too, I think we've been programmed as men, we've been programmed in a way to not really be, or I guess I don't want to say like give into our feminine energy, but also just like give into those like softer natures of ourselves. So where it's like, all right, we can be vulnerable, we can be expressive, we don't have to hold everything in. It's okay to cry, it's okay to be upset.
Right.
It doesn't make us weak, and we can still be strong and empowered. And I think through going, or by shining light on our areas of improvement, I don't really say our weaknesses, but just areas of improvement, we can start to grow and develop as men. And then we don't have to have that narrative like, oh, I have to be this like strong man. I got to put on this Superman cape for the world. Because even as a trainer, like I try to open up to my clients. Like I don't try to be like this perfect trainer who doesn't go through anything.
Right. Or
like is never tired. Like, no, I'm if I'm tired, I'm going to let y'all know
human.
I'm tired. Yeah,
right.
I'm still human.
Yep.
I still have X, Y, and Z emotions. I still feel certain things. And I think through that, we can generate more authentic relationships, and we gain more true respect, as opposed to just like, oh, this person's here, and then we kind of become idolized. In a sense. So I think if men should be more open,
Yeah, well, social media plays a huge impact on it. I think, whatever that you're scrolling, the algorithm on your phone, on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever social media that you use affects you deeply. And I think a lot of social media, they talk about all the successes, right? You have to be this guy in a fancy suit driving the Lamborghini. And, kids see that nowadays. They think that's what success is.
Right.
They don't find that balance. They think that, oh, I'm going to get the Dan Bilzerian. Like, you get all the women that you want. You get these 10 women. You go into a club, you're drinking, you get the most expensive bottles, you drive the most expensive cars. But in all honesty, that's just deterring you from just being a normal person.
Right. And I think the biggest thing, if we can, I read in a book, it was by Eric Tolle. I can't remember which one of his books. It might have been The Power of Now or A New Earth, either one of those two books. He says, don't let a mad world tell you that success is anything but being present in the moment. So like we could put quality of work into what we're currently doing. That's going to dictate our future. So we could just be present, and we could just be mindful of what we have, to be happy with what we have. I think we could develop more just success on a day-to-day basis, and not look like, oh, I didn't get X, Y, Z amount of money yet. I'm not successful. I wasn't able to move, to this place, I'm not successful. Like for me, a big thing a couple years ago was moving out of the inner city. Cause like the block that I grew up on, I still live on the same block. So like I used to be very just, I hate living here. I can't stand this place. I'm tired of this, tired of that. And like I would develop so much frustration and I was creating like my own problems just because like, and a lot of it was subconsciously what I was seeing on Instagram or comparing myself to the next person. I don't have a car, X, Y, Z. Like a lot of the things that I didn't have, I was just getting so frustrated about to where I just came to a point. One of my good friends, she told me that, you're not trapped or you're not just here. Like you're everywhere. Like as a spiritual being, you're everywhere. You're abundant. And once I started to kind of grasp that and conceptualize it, I was able to kind of free myself from a lot of those frustrations, a lot of those burdens that were just making me very unhappy and not appreciate what I actually have. And now it's funny because like I still live in the same house and like I'll look and be like, you know what? I actually enjoy where I'm at now. Like I have my garden set up.
Yep.
It's my house. I have my family around and I'm much more grateful for what I do have as opposed to looking at, I don't have X, Y, and Z and I'm mad. And like I would work and like my work ethic would be fueled from that anger. Like, oh, I got to get out of this place. Let me keep working hard.
Yeah.
As you were saying earlier, like just that work. And like I couldn't rest, couldn't sleep. I got to keep going, striving for more. And once I was able to kind of just find that peace where I was, a lot of that, I guess, mental tension, anxiety kind of evaporated and went away from me. Feeling like, oh, I got to keep doing more.
Yeah, one thing that helped me over the past few years has been the social media detox or quasi detox. I know you've done like a complete detox. Yeah. Like for me, it's a little bit different where I turn off all my socials during the weekday. Now that I have the podcast set up, I kind of on and off. I'm thinking about just getting another phone for social media just so I could post and continue to work on the podcast. But, before starting the podcast, I would delete my social media on the weekdays and just turn it back on the weekends just because one, I'm in the real estate industry. I want to keep up to date with what's going on in the city and what other people are doing as well and catching up to friends. So that's why I did that. It was like that quasi, but on the weekdays, it's like just be more productive, be mindful. And it does help a lot. That social media, that psychologically behind it, it's that, we're so bogged down into thinking that someone is better because everyone is posting all their accomplishments and their success on social media. And that affects us greatly, especially in the younger generations where they're so glued into their phones, like figuring out like, oh, this is what success is. And that become the education in their brain. But at the end of the day, it's just be more mindful. Just like what's going on right now. Do you have food on the table? Do you have, roof over your head? That's all you need, basic right?
Necessities, right?
Like, people in America, they have it so good. Like when I went back to Indonesia, it was terrible. Like kids didn't have electricity during the day. And, even if you're going to school, you're not going to get a future because there's nothing much in that island that I was in that you have opportunities. Yeah. It's like, even if you go to school, you're going to be smart, cool, but you're not going to Harvard or Stanford, right? And that's just a huge dream for them. I want to...
I'll say a real quick point on that because like even with the social media detox, like I took... just recently, I took 10 months off of it. And I think...
That's a long time.
Yeah. And I think through that, it's just like I can find more peace and just like not having the day-to-day, seeing what this person's doing, seeing what that person's doing, seeing this influencer, that influencer. And nowadays, as I got back on social media, all you see is suggested posts. So you don't even really see too many of your friends like posts. You just see like what Instagram is suggesting for you to see. So it's like you can't even really escape so much of the, I got to live like X, Y, Z manner. And so nowadays, like I still just use it for just to inspire the people to live healthy or maybe business or just kind of catch up or see what my friends are doing. Yeah. But it could definitely be very detrimental, just like creating that psychological image of what success is.
Yeah. And what you consume on social media and podcasts and just anything is just as important as your environment.
Right. And what you're eating.
Exactly. If you're consuming content that's, violent or maybe bad habits, you're gonna be into because you're so glued into the phone.
Then it's gonna just shape your subconscious and what's gonna eventually play out in your own life.
Yeah, it's just weird because you search up something on Google, next thing you know, it shows up on Instagram and it shows up on other platforms. It's like, why am I getting this?
So it's a big thing.
Yeah. Tell me about habits. I know you have journal. and you've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that and your process.
So journaling, I started journaling in 2019. One of my first health coaching client, she said she journaled, and then I just would kind of generate different journal posts for our meetings each week.
Yep.
And from then, I just been journaling on. It was like a period of time where I might have fell off a little bit, but I want to say for the past like 2 years, maybe I've journaled every morning. And what it does for me, it just allows me to do a few things. One, just see how I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis, kind of checking with myself mentally. Maybe journal about a certain experience, or maybe set out positive energy for my day, or maybe for the month or for the week. And then also just to express gratitude. And what it does for me, especially, just grounds me in the morning. I feel like we deal with a lot of chaos every day in our life, whether that's, certain bills, certain anxieties, certain stressors at work, family, X, Y, Z. However, for me, journaling is a part of my morning routine. Yep. And just taking that time out in the day to just sit with myself and, gravitate more internal peace just allows me to just set the foundation for the rest of my day. And so when I'm engaging with other people, or I might face a stressful situation, I can handle it with much more, I guess, self-awareness and much more maturity, and not let it get me or bog me down too much. And I could just show up a lot more successfully in that moment.
Yeah. Journaling definitely opens up your mind, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a self-therapy in a way, because and I think that's the most important thing for self-awareness, because you just sit down, whether you're typing or you're writing down using a notebook, like you're getting at all your feelings. You start asking yourself these questions. One thing that I started doing in my journal is I've been doing gratitude now, but putting more time into that gratitude space. I know you're more like free flowing when it comes to journaling, but I'm more like structured. And one of the sections is like the gratitude aspect. And sometimes when I first started, I would just write, "Oh, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for my cat," or "I'm grateful for my partner," or "I'm grateful for my parents." But then if you add just a little bit more time, because that took me 5 to 10 seconds to write it down or just type it. But then if you dedicate yourself to 2 minutes, you start thinking really hard. It's like, okay, I'm very grateful at that situation in Starbucks that, I had a bad day and the cashier was really, really nice. And she gave me a coffee and a smile, and that kind of.
I meant to do that too, because I keep mine more so just like I kind of list things I'm grateful for. So like you said, just kind of really digging in depthly to like, all right, well, I'm grateful about this. However, maybe look at how the rest of your day was, and kind of be able to bring it full circle, and like, why was it such a great experience to be grateful for? So that's a great way to look at it. I like to start doing that myself too. Yeah.
Gratitude is like the antidote for comparison. Yeah. Because when you start being like, okay, I'm really grateful for the things that I have, then you stop comparing yourself to other people.
That is true. And it's a seed for more. It's like, if you can't be grateful for what you currently have, it's like, do you really deserve to have more?
Yeah.
Or like, so if you could be grateful for what you have, it's like you open up the door for just like, I can be accepting and more embracing for more blessings to come. And it's like, having that gratitude is something that's very important.
Got it. In terms of, you start your day with journal. Talk about, we talk about this pre-recording, but what does that successful day look like for you?
So I'd say a successful day for me is just staying consistent and doing what's important. I think one thing that's always kept me aligned, and what I like to do is kind of seeing like, all right, well, what things are important to me, and let me try to get into them. So a successful start for my day always consists of, waking up, journaling, saying my affirmations, meditating, getting a workout in. It depends on how much I'm working out, but at least like doing some form of movement, which could be lifting weights. It could be walking, maybe going for a run. And just, that's like a successful start to my day. And then from there, it's just taking care of things that allow me to live with purpose. So working as a personal trainer, being able to help people improve their health with fitness, and also educating them on the importance of exercising, or maybe if they're going through something, one of my recent clients, she's been going through a breakup. So like just being there as a person of support, and to listen to her and be more compassionate, and let her know that, what, we're in this together, sticking through it, rocking with you, or maybe just helping somebody smile, like just that living with purpose. Sure. They could be me posting on social media, engaging with my family. And also too, purpose can also be whatever we want to make it to be. So it could be maybe just going for a walk, or taking time to settle myself mentally. A lot of those things build up success for me on a day-to-day. And then also making sure I'm staying on top of my eating. I think the biggest things when it comes to health is that we don't make time for eating healthy in America. I know a lot of the struggle points to my client is like diet. We can get to the gym. However, if someone wants to put on muscle, they may not eat enough to put on muscle.
Yep.
And it just comes with like, oh, I get too busy. I get too this. And I think for me, being intentional with my eating, staying on track of it, making sure I'm getting enough meals, and also too, just to be healthy. I'm not trying to get skinny again.
Sure.
So just making sure I'm eating enough. That's something that's also important. And I think too, just taking the time to spend with my family. I think that's one of my continuing struggle points sometimes, that I get so busy, or like, oh, I got to do X, Y, and Z. I got to do this, got to do that. I may not give as much time with my family. So that's something that I've been working on now. Is just like, you know what, let me just take a minute to, my little sister wants to show me something. Let me just stop and just look at it.
Yeah.
You only take 5 minutes, or maybe just have a quick conversation with my mom or grandparents, and just, while my family is here, let me appreciate them. Let me be grateful for them, and let me actually enjoy their presence. I was watching it was kind of like a 1-part documentary on "We Are the World," the song. So
Like
Lionel Richie,
Michael Jackson, right? Yep.
So Lionel Richie's dad, he said, "The house will always be there, but the people in the house won't always be there." And it was just like, once he said that, I was like, you know what? Let me start to be a little bit more grateful just for the people that I live with, and just to be more aware of just, everyone's not going to be here forever. And permanence is a real thing. And then we can have that in our mind, nothing's going to last forever. So let me, really appreciate those that I care about, those that care about me, that add value to my life. Let me care about them to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
So that, I can never have any regrets. Because I also read in the Heart of the Buddhist teaching, or one attention to mindfulness book, he said, when people die, we face regret because we didn't take the chance to be present while they were here.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can start to just be more present within our daily lives with those that we're with, doing things that we enjoy, we can really have successful days and, just have more fulfillment each and every day.
Yeah. I mean, I read the book Vivid Vision, and it talks about like what is that successful day, like the future you successful day. And it pretty much hit the spot on what you're talking about. It's like, how am I helping others purpose, right? And then am I seeing my family, whether that's your partner or parents or kids?
Yeah.
And then the physical aspect is important too. It's like continuously, like that's why I created this podcast, like the health, wealth, and relationship, right?
Right.
You have that relationship with your parents, your family, the whole 9 yards. And then you have the health aspect, where are you taking care of yourself physically, mentally, psychologically? Are you thinking straight? Are you getting that workout in? Are you eating good? And then that wealth aspect is similar to the purpose. It's like you're going out there, you're training with these people, and you're kind of pushing their boundaries, and obviously providing some value to their life, and that is your purpose. I think those 3 pillars are important as your day to day.
And I think too, like, wealth is always, I think the first, for a lot of people, I think wealth, even for me sometimes, when we hear the word wealth, we instantly think of money. And I think wealth doesn't always have to be with money, because money's going to come and go. Sure. I think when it comes to money, as long as we can pay for our expenses, whether that's bills or food or whatever the case may be, we can do our leisurely activities. They could be traveling, whatever you like to do. I think the money's going to come and go.
Yep.
However, our true forms of wealth, like you say, be family, purpose, community, our own physical, mental well-being. Yeah. I think if we can start to put more focus on those as being wealth as a society, I think we'll have more love in the world. Because I think a lot of the detrimental points of the world and just like humans come from just selfishness. And I think a lot of times people go towards money based off of their own individual ways of looking at life, or just wants and needs. And if we can start to just look at, this community is this form of wealth, this family or this food that I'm eating is forms of wealth, and we can start to generate and cultivate just a loving environment for, humans, for future generations, for animals. It's become more compassionate. So I think if we can shift the narrative of what wealth truly is, we'll be much more fulfilling, and as a whole, we'll have a better society. Yeah,
just it's hard, man. It's hard being a guy, right? It's like sometimes you want to wake up. It's like, oh, I want to make more money today, or I want to, be healthy today. It's like you have so many pillars in your life that you have to continuously work on. I want to shift gear here and talk about your book.
Okay.
I know you have a book coming up, or maybe you already published it?
So I'm working on it still, just in the publishing phases. I've been soft launching it. So I have my own business called Hood Healers Organics, and so I write a weekly newsletter. So I've been sharing it to them. I've been sharing it to a couple clients, family and friends, and so pretty much the book is called How to Eat: A Holistic Guide to Adopting a Plant-Based Lifestyle.
Okay.
And it's written in, I don't want to say it's written in like a vegan or highly like shifting towards a plant-based perspective. However, the aim of the book is to help individuals take some information in, but more so shift their habits to adopting their own unique version of a plant-based lifestyle. So I have information in there. I'm not telling you to eat meat. I might shift some gears and say, all right, maybe we shouldn't eat meat or shouldn't eat this. However, the main focus of the book is to, again, just help people, generate what foods they like to eat, know the reasons why. I think once we know maybe what something could do to us, whether if it's good or bad, then we can make a more empowered decision on, you know what, do I still want to eat this or do I not want to eat this? Because one of my, like I said in the beginning, like I don't always eat the healthiest plant-based or vegan foods. Like I might have a vegan donut or vegan pizza. I know in my head, all right, this isn't the healthiest thing. This is a pizza and a fruit. It's two different things. However, I can still enjoy the pizza and enjoy it, and then maintain my healthy lifestyle 90% of the time. And that's the overall goal of the book. Just to share some information, share some value, inspire others to maintain a healthy, lifestyle, so that it's not only impacting themselves, but it's also impacting their family members, future generations to come. And just to share some information, I think the biggest two people that are very inspiring to me are Tupac and Nipsey Hussle. And they
rest in peace on both of them.
Tupac, he died at 25. Nipsey Hussle died at 33. So, we're never always going to be here forever. And I think for me specifically, one thing I've always dealt with, I never thought I was going to make it to live past 25. I've made it past 26. Right, well,
I'm grateful that you're here.
26. So that was always like one of the biggest fears I've been dealing with the past couple of years. And sometimes too, like, I don't know if I look at my life, like, I don't know if I'm ever going to live a long life. I would love to. But what inspires me to like share things and, be a positive influence that, I'm not going to be here forever. And like seeing them, and Nipsey Hussle, he inspired me. Like when I left college, I just came across Nipsey Hussle. Then he died like a year later.
Wow.
And so I'm like, damn, or maybe a couple months later after I found out about him. But just so much of what they put out and the work that they put in and things that inspired them, and how, to one of Tupac's quotes is, he said, spark, but you can change, or he said it was something along these lines. You never know who you're going to touch, but you can spark the mind that changes the world. So I just try to put out information, try to put out content, whether it's social media, books, or even just touching individuals' lives. And just, changing that one person, they can take that information and change so many other lives. So like, that's my biggest thing with books, social media posting, is just continue to share and be a positive inspiration, so that I can continue to influence and impact other individuals in a positive manner.
Well, you're definitely impacting a lot of people, whether that's personally in your personal trainer, and also that we're putting out content as well. And that's why I like doing this podcast thing, because we're having conversations like this, and our conversation can make other people grow, whether that's health, wealth, and relationships, just in general, and they could talk whatever that you're speaking today to other people as well, like the healthy habits, the fitness, the relationship, vulnerability, accountability, all those aspects. I want to go into the last bit of the show, and we ask the same questions for our guests every single time, and in a future time. Is the name of the podcast called Kaizen Blueprint? Kaizen is a Japanese term for continuous development or continuous improvement, and change for the better. What is like the thing that you're doing every day outside of healthy food, or is there specific things that it's in your mind, it's in your daily things that you think can benefit other people to do every day?
I think the biggest thing would be compassion. I think if others can generate compassion, one, for themselves, I know we touched on this a little bit throughout the podcast. I think the biggest thing, we could be compassionate within ourselves. That can really develop how we interact with our world. Because I think everything that happens is based upon, in our lives, is always determined within. If we have a beautiful world within, then we'll have a beautiful world without. And the more that we can develop more compassion, more self-love, more self-care, more kindness and consideration for ourselves, we can take that energy and just radiate it outside of ourselves. My friend, she sent me a video by a guy named Barry Long, and he talked about like relationships and sex. And one point that stood out within the interview was that he said, if you're not in a relationship, then you can take the beauty that you have within and just share it to other people. So it's like, all right, you may feel lonely. You may feel, oh, I wish I was in a relationship X, Y, and Z. However, if you just accept that, you know what? This is not my time for a relationship, but I can still take the beauty that's within my heart and just share it to other individuals. So that's something I try to do. And I think that beauty, if we can let it stem from compassion and self-love and self-care, we can just, continue to just be a better human being each and every day.
Got it. Starts from within. All right. Well, where can people find more about you?
So number one, I'm gonna say Hood Healers Organics. Still just growing and developing my business. So that's gonna be number one. On our homepage, we have a join our community page. Each Monday, I send out a free newsletter, and the biggest thing for the newsletter, I want to just share information, share inspiration, and just share kind of what's going on, what I'm learning in my day to day. So that's number one. Instagram, Sulaimaan414. One of the biggest things I've done recently on my Instagram is to show more authentic versions of myself. So you might get the health side, you might get some silly stuff, might just get just me being truly authentic to myself.
That's awesome.
And then also too, I currently work at City Fitness on 12th and Market as a personal trainer within our Thrive program. And I've really been loving it. I feel very purposeful. I love meeting people. I love engaging. So if you want more hands-on help with personal training, you can reach me there. And then also, on my Instagram homepage, you can schedule a free consultation with me. So if you want a consultation about fitness, I do online fitness training. And then also if you just need some pointers, a direction of how you can level up your health, feel free to schedule a free consultation and we can, continue to grow from there.
So many different platforms.
Hopefully, I try not to identify as one thing, I think if we identify as I'm this one thing, we kind of put ourselves in a bubble in a box. But I think our spirits are free flowing and everlasting. And if we can take that image and just live that way, we don't have to box ourselves in.
Awesome. Well, Sulaimaan, thanks for being on the podcast and see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, Aldo. Peace and love.